Rich trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease. Score!
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Broad Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, Bubba?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Broad Street Bullies. Jesus take the wheel. Govy's got control. No Derek Bob tonight. He's taking care of a few things. We won't go any more in depth than that. But I am with my friends, the Matts. Well, no, my friend Matt Casey and Hoagie. Casey, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Happy New Year's. It's good to see Hoagie sitting upright this week. It's good stuff.
Oh my God, what a mess. Hoagie, are you able to mutter more than whoa?
Yes. My sincerest apologies for 2 weeks ago.
I didn't think it could get worse, Hoagie. It got worse, buddy.
It got worse. Yeah, it got real bad.
I really thought that like shit-faced Hoagie was gonna like be something we want more of.
No, I've seen
that
it.
we could shelf it. It was
Yeah,
not.
no, that
pretty.
was way too far in the bag, Hoagie.
You didn't hit the culmination there.
Yeah.
So we have a ton to talk about tonight, but I have to start with something that's not hockey related. So I got home a little bit late tonight. I had this meeting that I had to attend. So I was typically when I take the train home, I can kind of beat the rush hour. I'm on like the 4:12, but this was the dead of awfulness, 5:59 train. And I was waiting to find out what track my train was on. And there was this couple. I mean, they must have been, I don't know, late 40s to early 50s. And clearly the woman was leaving to go somewhere because they just kept kissing each other. And it was like, no, I want one
did
more.
The trains tip you off there?
Well, but like he wasn't going with her is what I'm trying to say, right? So anyway, I'm like, wow, this is really dramatic. So the guy walks away and she goes and walks down the path and he's got his earpiece in. So I'm starting to think, I really hope this guy's listening to some dramatic music as he says goodbye. And I spent a good 5 minutes thinking, what song could he possibly have been listening to?
What was your first knee-jerk reaction?
Long December by Counting Crows. And it's one more day up in the canyon.
My mind went right to the Titanic like flute music.
Right.
Hoagie, what do you got?
Hoagie, what song you got?
You got to go with one of Taylor Swift's depressing ones. Why not?
Thanks for your specificity,
Hey,
my
you're welcome.
friend.
Shake It Off? Was it
Shake It Off, right?
Yeah, that one too.
Right, that one where she's like sitting in the car with the dude and it's like getting hot and heavy or whatever.
Not that I've watched that.
Once or twice. The trilogy, if you will.
Watch that one out.
All right. Anyway, let's jump into some Flyers talk. Flyers in the midst of a winning streak. Longest winning streak.
I think we beat it, haven't we?
I think it's matching. I think we were 3-0 to start the year, right? Or something like that.
You're right. We've bucked the Disney on Ice curse.
I know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we beat the Sharks. Really nice win against the Kings, okay?
Yep.
I mean, and then the Ducks. I don't think we should waste any time kind of dissecting these games just one by one. You're looking at two pretty bad teams sandwiching in a pretty good team.
Right.
But the Flyers win 3 consecutive games. So Casey, I'm going to go to you first because I think the really interesting conversation here is I think like this team for what they are is actually starting to look kind of good. Again, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Where
I
do
think
you sit with that?
I'm I want the team to play to the best of their ability. And I think we've seen, yes, we keep on hearing lack of high-end talent. Why didn't we get Johnny Hockey? Like all those. I get it. I see everyone's perspective there. But I think if you're going to play professional hockey, like you got to bust your ass, and especially with a coach like Torts, like you got to play the right way. And now we're actually seeing like the fruits of those labors coming through. And like I, for one, like we've been through such a dismal 2.5 years,
Right.
and I'll take a 3-game winning streak. And like it's so messed up because it makes me feel like mentally better.
Right.
And like, granted, I haven't even watched 2 of the 3 games because they've been on, past
Way
9
too
o'clock,
late.
which is way too late for me. I did rewatch some of the first period of the Anaheim games. There were a couple goals there, and I was just like, you know what? We're playing well. We're playing structured. We're playing disciplined for the most part. And, you're starting to see some of the younger guys that everyone's like, oh, trade them. I don't know if I want to trade them. And
Right.
so I think the exact kind of thing that we're hoping this year would achieve would be who's in that nucleus, who's not. And what is going on over there, Hoagie? And so I think we're finally getting a little bit of clarity. I mean, still maybe too early. It's been painful, but
Right.
you know what? I'll take a win streak all day long.
Yeah. How about you, Hoagie?
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I mean, like Casey, I watched the Sharks game. Don't remember much of it because it ended at 1:30, whatever. You don't get to see much of it. But, I mean, it's good to see them putting together some wins, scoring some goals. It's great to see a quote-unquote third-string goaltender play pretty well behind this team. I mean,
Sure.
Sam Ersson did real well. I know we're going to get into that a little later on, but I was impressed by his confidence and the way he held himself against these teams. I'm just impressed at how they held themselves on that West Coast in California. I mean, the Toronto game, the Carolina game right before Christmas break, they were interesting because they were 1-goal games. The
Right.
Carolina one,
Forgets you
especially.
talk about
A
these.
chance to tie those up too. Like there were some legit chances
Right.
to tie those up. You could see him trying to break through the glass.
They were like right there. Like the Carolina one, Casey, you and I were texting like, turn that one off. See you later, and then turn around 6-5. Like what's going on here? I mean, it's still exciting hockey. We know we're not going to be riding multiple win streaks, but I mean, I'll take what we can get.
Right. I mean, and that's the two things that I really want to point out is one, like, do not pay attention to the quality of opponent. Like, let's be real here, right? This Flyers team doesn't have the talent to compete with the better teams in the league, and come away with consistent wins. Like, I want to see them beat the Anaheims and I want to see them beat the San Jose Sharks because it's like, Anaheim might be closer to that lottery pick, but I think that they're further away from, really turning it around. Like they seem to have some high end talent, but then it's like, well, but then what? I mean, they're a hot mess right now.
And they have the highlight machine, Trevor Zegras, and then what else?
Right. The really interesting thing for me is like we're finally starting to see some goals.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and this is going to sound incredibly corny and I'm going to sound like I'm 80 years old, but like you're almost watching this team like grow up right before your eyes. Like,
right.
But like, look at where they were at the beginning of this season. Well, I mean, after the, little honeymoon stage, but like we couldn't buy a goal, but you're seeing guys like Tippett starting to play really well. I mean, I'm not ready to go I was listening to a podcast earlier today. And this guy was like potentially top 3 forward. I'm like, oh, okay, hold on, buddy.
He had a nice goal against the Kings, man. That was a nice goal
for sure. But you got to show me a little bit more to be going there. But I think like the interesting thing is, so you're seeing some pieces progress, and some people don't like it. There's this mindset of, well, this is the year that you want to suck because of Connor Bedard. And I don't think any of us are going to argue about Connor Bedard and him being worth it, right? Like, absolutely seems to be one of those generational talents. And then, Hoagie, I'll kick it to you first. Are you more of the mindset where it's like, I'd rather this team just lose all the time so we have the best odds for Connor Bedard? Or are you more of the mindset where it's like, I want to see this team progressing and I want to see that we're moving forward right now? And if for some reason we got Connor Bedard, that'd be great.
Yeah, the latter. I mean, we have to lose every game. Why are we winning? You're losing your chance. It drives me insane. I hate seeing it, and most of the time I just close out Twitter because I'm like, I don't want to get angry anymore. Like,
right.
You want these bright spots in a season that is so bad, quote unquote. I mean, it's not as bad as like an Anaheim, but it's not promising because we're not going to the playoffs. There's no way. But I mean, the Travis Konechny's emerging, the Morgan Frost and the Owen Tippett's kind of figuring their ways out on a team that's kind of not really all there. And you have your veteran guys such as like Lawton and Provorov and other guys like that are kind of stepping into their roles and kind of leading this team the way we want to see it. This is the year where we need to see who's a part of the system, who's a part of the plan, who are the Torts guys that are going to be here for the next 2 to 4 years of Torts' reign. So,
I mean, Casey, I know how you feel about this, right?
Yeah, I think tanking in any way, shape, or form in any sport breaks just the fundamental rule of playing competitive sports in general. I don't care if you're playing freaking JV or midget hockey versus the NHL. Like you play the game to win, and whether or not you have the skill or the team makeup or the chemistry, all the elements to actually become a winning team is hard enough as it is. But like, I don't think there is any team out there in the NHL, even Anaheim or Chicago, who's doing terrible, who's like, yeah, we're going out to lose tonight. No, I think on the higher levels, on the GM, be like, we're structuring this team to tank, but we obviously we're not there. And, to bring this back a little bit to the original question of like, the California trip, like, give me all the Western Conference teams you can handle, man, because like that division is garbage right now.
Yeah,
the whole
like
we
would be in striking distance of a playoff spot there.
Right.
And I mean that's sad. I mean, you look at the standings as it sits right now on Wednesday. I think we're 26th in the league total. So like there are 5-6 teams below us who have a better shot at this point, and like to the point where like Columbus is 11 points behind us.
Right.
Like they are dismal, and for injury purposes and a lot of other things, like they're a dismal team.
Right.
And you're seeing Chicago, you're seeing Anaheim. Like we're not close to getting that first potential lottery pick. And even if so, what do you have, an 80% chance of not getting that pick anyway?
Right. It's 18. I think it's like 18.6% of getting it. And I think you got to look at it a few ways, right? It's like, one, the contracts that this team the Flyers have right now, we are not in a good position to just suck. I mean, like, well, not suck, but to tank, because you're committed to a lot of these players. You need them to start to try to, trend in the right direction. I'm pretty confident, and I don't know if you two are, I'm pretty confident that at the end of the season, this is still going to be a bottom 5 team. I think once you trade away JVR, you get rid of Justin Braun, you're bound to see a few more injuries because let's be real here. Where if you're still sitting at 4 or 5, there's a really good chance. I mean, there's a decent enough chance that you could win that number 1 overall pick. But considering this draft, you're still going to get a really good player.
Yep.
What's the line of demarcation in the draft, do you think, realistically? Like in my mind, there's always like a top 5 pick. You're going to get somebody decent. Like top 1 or 2, you're going to get the money shot unless it's 2017, in which case, joke's on us. But in this draft, is it fair to say that it's like, hey, a top 10 pick in this draft is a pretty decent haul?
I think you're looking at it this way. I think for most of the first round, you're looking at a pretty decent player. I think that you've got obviously Bedard at the top, but then you've got Fantilli. There's Carlson. There's Matvei Michkov, who is also a really amazing player. The only thing with him is he's signed in Russia, I think, until like 2025 or something.
What could happen? What could go wrong there?
Right, yeah, I feel like the Flyers won't want to take a risk on that. But I think that the Flyers could get a superstar level player if they're picking within the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
They could still get a high end talent
Right
past that,
Right.
which is pretty remarkable. I mean, they're looking at this as being maybe the deepest draft since what, 03, I think.
Yeah,
You would know better than we would.
Yeah, I mean, this is just what I've heard through other people talking on,
Right.
podcasts and things like that.
Was 03 Ovechkin and Crosby? Was that the 03?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, that
I
sounds
believe
right.
so. But yeah, I mean, so I think that like the Flyers are still going to be in a position to get a really good draft pick here.
Right.
So you want to see this team starting to progress because if you get a really good player, you want them to come into the right environment.
Yeah. And you want them to come into the right environment, but you also like one player on there. And look, Bedard, I understand he's great. Fantilli, I'm sure he's great. I haven't watched that guy. I wouldn't know him if I tripped over him, but he sounds like he's great. I'm not going to put stock in a draft pick coming in and with maybe one or two exceptions coming in year one and being like, oh, I'm putting this team on my back and we're going. Like you have to have the structure 98% of the time in order to at least, give them something to work with, because there's still going to be mistakes. There's still a growing and acclimation process.
Well, look at some of the best first round picks so far. I mean, obviously Connor McDavid comes to mind first.
Mm-hmm.
They can't build a team around him.
Right.
Austin Matthews, another amazing player, another fantastic draft pick. That team with all the talent in the world can't seem to get out of the first round. Like it's so much more about building the team than it is getting that one player.
Right.
Not saying having a Connor Bedard wouldn't be amazing, especially for the city of Philadelphia, to have that guy as like the face of the franchise, the future, like something to look forward to. I think it would be amazing.
Yep.
But he's not going to be the be all end all.
No.
Right.
And the other thing is again, that the West is so bad. Like there is a huge chance that he goes to a Western Conference team and we see him once a year, and that's it. Like the worst case scenario out of this is that the Devils somehow snake another number one draft.
They can't, right?
Why can't they?
Did they put in a rule where you can't like drop into that top 3?
I think you can only move up so many, so they'd really have to start stinking it up. But
which I swear to God, Mark, I bet the Devils don't right now. I bet the Devils do not make the playoffs.
I mean, I don't think that's that risky, because I'm with you. I don't think that they're that good of a team, but I do think we should move on because we do have tons to talk about. So new year, right? There's a lot of excitement, I think, and relatively speaking, surrounding this team, especially for the people who follow it. There's also a ton of questions, and I think we're going to jump into some of those now. And I think the biggest question surrounding this team moving forward this year has to do with our boy Kevin Hayes. Matt Casey, it's not working. This marriage right now is just not working. What do you think happens this year, as it being 2023, so we can talk trade deadline, summer, whatever? What's going to happen with Kevin Hayes here?
So look, just some background first. So Hayes's cap hit is what, $7 million and change for the next 3 years,
4 years,
3 or 4, yeah.
And he has a partial no movement clause, which I think is like he's named 12 teams, so it's not like totally ridiculous, but like I think what's his name? Keith Jones was doing the Winter Classic the other day, so we got the pleasure of hearing Morganti on the play-by-play, which is like bless his heart for trying, but goddamn, like there's a reason why he's not a play-by-play guy. And our friend of the show, Jim Jackson, did a great job. But Morganti had basically a call out on him in the first period of that game, where he was just like, this Flyers team is actually playing really well. If only Kevin Hayes could get back to playing well, like I'd love to see where this goes. And it's like, okay, it can only go so far. Right. But the fact that it's being like called out by one of the most respected Flyers analysts and beat reporters, I would say, in the form of Morganti, shows that, yeah, Hayes' game is not where it should be. And you can go through the drama with Torts. You can look at his body language, his production drop off. He just has not responded, and the marriage isn't working.
Right.
Now, what do we do about it is a whole other question because of the contract and, super. Was that Chuck or Hextall that made that move? I think it was Chuck, wasn't it?
Chuck signed him. Yeah, it was his first off season.
A rare miss by Chuck. But I personally do not think. One, I bet that Hayes has probably hinted that he wants a trade. I wouldn't be shocked there. I don't think you're able to move him with value at the trade deadline. This is an off-season change of scenery trade that you're going to have to make with another player of similar salary who needs a change of scenery as well. And it's a matter of it's factoring in the duration. We may have to eat some salary. I saw some bonehead saying we should eat 50% of his salary. It's like, no, he's still a good productive player. We don't need to eat 50% of his salary for 3 years. That's ridiculous. But we may have to eat 25% of it.
Definitely gonna have to eat something.
Yeah. And so you just have to weigh those options. But there's a lot of different leverage you can pull. I do not see him. I would be shocked if he is here at the start of training camp next year, but I don't see him being moved in season this year.
How about you, Hoagie? What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting if they were to move him during the season, because I don't think we get anything in return of value. Maybe some picks, but I can't see any picks really be moving for this year's draft. It would probably be for 2024 and on or something like that. I do like how you said, maybe we get a player in the offseason that is of likewise cap hit. Mm-hmm. Maybe even just a step less. But
I look at the Voracek Atkinson.
Yeah, right.
Trade.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
Okay, that worked out well until this year for both teams.
Right. But I definitely don't see them buying him out, because that really hurts us in cap, because we're paying $3 or $4 million for a couple years. You got to find a way to trade him, and I think it's there. Like we said, the writing's on the wall. He's playing lazy. He's just not he was our top point producer for a while, and then I think he's getting tired of being the towards fall guy. That's what it's coming down to. He's tired of getting dragged through the locker room like, hey, look at me, here I am. A trade is definitely in the works. It's got to be the way it happens, unfortunately.
Right.
But you can't have this toxicity in the locker room anymore, because he's just going to keep bringing down the team. We need guys that are going to pump each other up, and his toxicity is not helping us.
Go ahead, John. I had some predictions, but you go with your take.
All right. Well, first of all, just to kind of touch on the trade deadline idea. I was listening to, I can't remember which podcast, but they brought up a really good point where it's there's really still uncertainty surrounding how high the cap's going to go up this offseason. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's very challenging for teams to take on players with term when they're not really sure what's going to happen in the offseason, how much money they're going to have to commit elsewhere, what their team is going to look like. So I think if you keep that in mind, I find it very hard to believe that Kevin Hayes gets moved. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, because Casey, you kind of hinted on it, and I think it would be fun to play a little hypothetical with it, is the idea of Kevin Hayes saying, hey, I want out, right? Mm-hmm. We're not saying that he did. This is a hypothetical. Mm-hmm. Let's for a second just play with the idea. Kevin Hayes says, Chuck, I want out of Philadelphia. Please, this is the teams I don't want to go to. Casey, what do you see a deal like for Kevin Hayes? What in return? What do you think would happen there?
Oh God. I have a clarifying question first. If a player asks for a trade, does he then waive his partial no movement clause? So does that open it up instead of 12 teams to all 32 teams, or open it up to 24 teams or something like that? I don't know the answer to it.
I would say most likely no.
Right.
Like maybe, I mean, I don't know how it works, right? So it's like, I don't know if they submit the teams and then it's like there's no budging, but it's like maybe he only submits like 3 teams and so like, don't send me to Arizona, don't send me to Columbus, something like that. But I would say that he probably still has control over that.
Right.
Yeah. So look, I think we end up eating close to $2 million of that salary.
Okay.
So that puts it at about a $5 million contract over 3 years.
Yeah.
And so that's tough. But I think it's probably worth it in terms of what we get in return. I think like Hayes isn't like, he's not a scrub. Like he's not somebody who's over the hill. He's what, 28 or 29.
Right.
Like he's right there in his prime.
Yeah.
And so I think like the idea that we're not going to get anything back is ridiculous. What we can get back, I don't know. I would like to think we get at the very least a third line player and a pick or something like that. Like I would say a roster player and a pick would be something that like I would think would be realistic, but like you never know. Maybe it is a 1-for-1 swap. Like I look at a team like Florida, who is inexplicably doing horribly right now. And it's like, do they need a shakeup down there again? I know they removed their core, but like, do they need a viable second line center to come in and help out at a $5 million cap hit versus $7 million cap hit?
Right.
And so I don't know. I think there's going to be suitors out there, but we're so close to it, guys, with like, we just think that he is the worst freaking thing in the world. And I can guarantee like the rest of the teams don't all think that way, but I don't have faith in Chuck that he can play the cards right in order to convince people otherwise.
Well, that's the one thing I was going to say. And then Hoagie, I'm going to kick it to you is once again, you kind of find Chuck in a position where he's going to be dealing from a disadvantage. Right. Where it's like, that this isn't working and he's got to try to find a trade, like even if it never came out that Kevin Hayes requested a trade, I don't think other teams would be like, oh, you really don't want to part ways with this player or he really wants to stay in Philadelphia, where it's like, I do think that Chuck would end up getting less of a value because of that. But Hoagie, I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I'm really not, but
I know you're not. Okay. So Casey's age, he will be 31 at the end of the season.
31. Okay.
Yeah.
Missed that a little bit.
A couple years, it's all right. We got him for a 5th round pick.
Yeah, but that was just his rights.
That was just his rights. Exactly. I get that. It's very lame to bring up, but
very lame.
Yeah, I think it's for a player, and I think you're maybe getting 3rd, 4th round picks. I don't think anybody's dishing out 1st or 2nds for him. Personally, I think he's going to Boston. I just have this feeling in my gut that the Hayes family wants him back, and he wants to go back to Boston, kind of be back with his family, back where his brother is. That whole ordeal that we tried to help him with. But I think that's where he's going, but I just don't see where he fits in on a juggernaut of a Boston team this year. But I mean, but Boston, I think, but that's also putting it into Boston this year. Off season, Boston needs players.
Right.
There's no way we're moving him this year. We're not going to move him this year.
Off season, I think it's Boston. If it's off season, it's going to Boston because they have like 10 expiring contracts and they're on need. They're not going to sign everybody. There's no way. Like, you have Bergeron, you have Krejci, you have some guys on 1-year deals that are at the end of their careers. You're not going to need a guy like Kevin Hayes to come in and be a stepping stone per se.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see I don't see the Flyers walking away from this trade feeling good about what they got. I mean, even if they, Chuck goes up there, if it is Chuck, and that's a conversation we'll dive into a little bit more, if somebody goes up there and it's like, oh yeah, we're really happy, especially us, right? We'll be like, oh God, that was it. Because I like the idea of a player, but I'm thinking, okay, but what player? In my mind, I would love a third line center. I would like somebody who is just like, okay, you are our third line center. This is what you do. No questions. Boom. There it is. But is somebody making that trade?
I also think like we have third line centers. Like we have them. And I'm not just talking Morgan Frost. We have people who are like capable of doing third line center. Like I'd be interested in like forget the forward for a second. It's like, do we need to make a defensive move? Like, do we need to make a move for a backup goalie or like, something like I just like
so you just want a player involved.
I would say a regular roster player is the way I would position it. Like I think it's a matter of like where we need to fill the holes.
Well, but that's the thing. I feel like a trade for Kevin Hayes, and maybe I'm just flat out wrong here. I just don't think that it's trading Kevin Hayes. No, it's not possible. I don't think that trading Kevin Hayes. I don't think that what we would get back in return would fill a hole. Even if it's even if you went winger right and for the forwards, right? You're not getting more than the third line guy, which again we have. Defenseman, you're getting a bottom pairing guy. Again, I think we have those.
Right.
So it's like I really think that the Flyers will approach any trade and going, okay, we're able to shed as much salary as possible, and we've got this guy out of the locker room, right? I don't think necessarily he's terrible for the locker room. It's just not working out. So I think that really like that's going to be the value that the Flyers get from a deal like this.
I think the frustration, and I agree with you. Like, and who knows what it'll be, and you never know. I mean, the Ellis trade obviously went bust for everyone involved, but there are ways to maneuver stuff around. Sure. And the one thing I will give Chuck credit for is that when he sees a player that he wants, it's not like an immediate like knee-jerk reaction. Like he tries to like grease the wheels for months and sometimes years. And we saw that with Ellis. I think we probably saw it with Ristolainen as well. And you can critique him all you want, but it's like, okay, he tries to take like, okay, this isn't the trade deadline thing. I'm going to try to get this. If I can't get that, then I need to work this person in. And all of a sudden you have a 3-way trade with Vegas and Nashville, which again went bust for everybody, but especially us. So I don't know. I'm with you. I feel like I have no reports saying that he is a locker room cancer by any means, but what you can see on the ice is that like you have a young core that's beginning to believe a little bit.
Right.
And
he's being left in the dust.
The best case scenario, you have guys like Cam and Coots coming back, down the road. Coots maybe even in the next 2 months, for a stint. Like you never know. Like there's just other elements to fit in here, and if he's not buying in, dude, get out. It's fine. Like get out, but like
own it.
I don't know.
I just had an interesting thought, and I'm curious of what you think. And this just came up, so it's not very well thought out. But there are some interesting pending UFAs coming up. Whether it be like a Ryan O'Reilly, like a Vlad Tarasenko, and I think he just got hurt. I don't know what the extent of it is, but I wonder if there's a world. And Hoagie, I'll pitch this to you first. I wonder if there's a world where you can approach a team and trade them someone like Kevin Hayes for a guy like that and almost be like, I hope to work something out. Like Ryan O'Reilly, right? Clearly not the player that he once was, but I still think that he has value. Where it's like you could approach St. Louis and go, okay, hey, let's work out a deal. You get your Ryan O'Reilly replacement. We'll take O'Reilly. He'll work with he'll obviously play with the team, see if you can get him for a reasonable deal, because I think this team could still use a player like him. If not, he leaves and you've also gotten rid of your Kevin Hayes salary problem.
Right.
What do you think about that, Hoagie? Is it dreaming a little too much?
I think so. Because I feel like, if St. Louis isn't in the hunt, I don't know where they're at in the standings. But
well, I was just throwing. I mean, St. Louis.
Yeah, no, I get you. But if it's an interesting UFA that's on a bottom feeding team, why not? But I don't think Hayes will be going to a bottom feeding team. He's only going to a team that's successful and is continuously in the playoffs year after year. But I mean, if you can get someone like a St. Louis Blues who's kind of like right there on the bubble
Right.
of wild card, whatever, send them there and maybe we can get something like that. I don't know. I think it's streaming. Sorry, I don't know.
No, it is. I mean, I'm just.
I
I
hate these trade scenario
Oh, I love it.
questions. They irk me.
I'm
there's
so
much
bad at it.
involved.
I don't get the value.
Yeah.
I don't get the value of any of these guys, but
Yeah.
Well, like Casey, what do you think though? Like, imagine if they could put something together for Bo Horvat. Bo Horvat wants out. I mean, isn't going to return to Vancouver unless I miss something, right? Where it's like, okay, we'll give you Kevin Hayes and our other 2024 first round draft pick for Bo Horvat. You know, with some sort of idea that we'd be able to re-sign, or like just something where it's like there's risk involved. You might not keep the player.
It's a huge risk. I mean, it's huge, and you better be damn sure that you're talking with his agent. And the preference that everybody would have would be like Vancouver signs Bo Horvat, or St. Louis signs O'Reilly, and then they trade him off. But really, it's us doing the negotiating there. Right. I don't think it's a ridiculous premise for a team like that who is like a couple players away, who's like, man, we really need center depth right now, and there's just like nobody on the market, and we feel like we can lock this guy up for multiple years. Like that could be a good fit for some team. I think the scenario that you're playing out is really, really risky, but like sometimes you just got to do it, man. Like, I think that you just have to roll the dice and try to get it done. But I think Chuck's too cautious.
No, he's not. He's really not the GM to do something crazy like that.
Right. He's the GM to sign ridiculous long contracts to the Minnesota guys, and
right,
walk away.
Yeah. No, I know. All right. Well, I think this conversation is something that we will continue multiple times. But let's move on to another question. And this one surrounds Cam York. So Cam York, I think, to the surprise of a lot of people, did not make the roster back in October, right? He was sent down to Lehigh Valley, and boy, did it work out, because he has looked really good since he came back. Mm-hmm. So Cam York, I think, real quick, Cam York is here to stay.
I would say so.
He better be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to even waste any time on that. So Cam York is here to stay. What happens with the rest of the defense here? Where does Cam York wind up? Mm-hmm. Where do the other pieces move? Because we have an interesting D core, if you want to call it that, where it's like one of these pieces just isn't going to fit. So, Casey, with York kind of at the centerpiece of this, what's up with the D?
What's up with the D? So I think one, I would say our defense in general has been okay. Like it's not something that I'm noticing terribly, bombing terribly on the ice each night like they were a few years ago. Are they elite? No, but they're playing okay. The interesting part of this decor is that it's like every night it's like, all right, pick a name out of the hat. That's your partner. And we've seen Risto play on the first pair with Provorov. We've seen York play on the first pair. We've seen Tony D up there. Like it's just a revolving thing. And then you have Sealer and Braun sort of locking it down, and then Sanheim with that new contract, which still drives me nuts. Just kind of holding things down and doing okay. Where it shakes out, one, I think it's going to shake itself out. Obviously, Sealer and Braun are taking nights off. They're switching nights here and there. I don't know what Sealer's contract is. I'm assuming he's a free agent next season, right?
I would much.
I would imagine so.
John?
Braun, like realistically, if we get another third for Braun at the trade deadline, great. That's besides JVR, that's going to be, the next guy out the door. So I think it's going to work itself out there. But I think it's going to be more interesting for somebody like
2 years. Sealer's got one more year after this.
God damn.
Of course he does.
Please tell me he has a no move clause.
It's the Chuck Fletcher special.
I think we're safe with that one.
And I don't want to crap on Sealer. Sealer's played actually a
seventh defenseman. He wants to be that for next year. Fine.
Good. So Braun's out, so that it kind of takes care of itself. Where I think and where you're getting at, John, I think it puts Tony D a little bit expendable, quite frankly. I know one's a righty, one's a lefty. Tony has, I'm not talking about the benchings or the scratchings, which nobody's giving him as much crap as they're giving Hayes, even though Tony D was scratched twice, but then his grandmother died, and everyone's like, oh, it's because of his grandmother. Like, no, it's because he was playing like a Neanderthal.
Right.
So I think that in the long run, I think York ends up making Tony D'Angelo a little bit obsolete because they have corresponding skill sets.
All right. I mean, I feel like at some point, though, you've got to be able to put Cam York on the left side, right?
I think you have to. And like then at that point, you have 3 left side puck moving defensemen with Provorov, Sanheim, and York. I'm so mad about the Sanheim deal.
Wouldn't it be crazy? Wouldn't it be crazy, Hoagie, if Sanheim could have potentially been a UFA? You traded him for a decent value, got a pretty high pick or whatever, and then York just slid right in. Like, wouldn't it be crazy if that could have been an option?
That would have been the most ideal freaking option, but Chuck Fletcher's brain works in different ways than the rest of us. Apparently, the defense is, like you said, it's a core, and unfortunately, Fletcher has made it a core.
Yep.
With the contracts that he has dealt with Ristolainen, with Sanheim, with Tony D'Angelo to an extent, because he signed 2 years, right? Or
2 years.
Yeah, he's got 2 years.
So like to an extent, it's a core like that. That's what we're running with. Like the Sanheim, like we said, it just mind boggles everybody because it was the day before opening night. Why are we doing that? We haven't even seen him skate yet. Like it's frustrating. Like Casey said, I think it's going to work itself out. I think. Braun's on his way out. I could see Braun even leaving earlier than the trade deadline. Get him in with the team, get him gelling with everybody, use of the system, stuff like that. And then that kind of helps you seal that, just run with Nate Sealer and whoever else on the third line. Let York kind of flow up and down the lineup like he has been.
Yeah. I do think it puts Ivan Provorov in an interesting situation, because it should have put Travis Sanheim in an interesting situation, I think, when you're thinking at least long-term, but we've committed to him. And now you've got Ivan Provorov, who I wouldn't say has played poorly this season, but I do think that he gets brought up as someone whose play is inconsistent, right? I think that if you were going to try to find a group of players that might still be on the outs with Torts, he might be in there, right? Like, is he?
Why do you say that? What's? Because I'm not feeling that way.
No, So, first of all, I think that Torts wants more out of him. I think that he has consistently brought up his consistency issues, right? Where it's like, I just think that, like, at some point, something's going to give with this roster. Like, we can't bring back everything, right? And it's like, when you think of the players where it's like, who's going to be a part of this long term and this whole storyline around figuring out the players long term, for me, it's just, I've always had this feeling that he's just going to be the odd man out here. I think that, like, he's just been put in a situation in Philadelphia where he's had to be more than he should be, as far as his skill set goes, where it's like, I don't know. I think it's just more of a gut feeling.
Yeah. I don't know. I look, I understand why people were down on Provorov in the last couple of years, because he was pretty, I don't want to say like vocal because he's not, but he was very much like, this isn't good enough. And he kind of goes into a shell, but as it turns out, like, he was right in a lot of ways. Like the team was not good enough. And like, if, you can say what you want about the guy, but like, he doesn't miss games. Like, he's been injured this year and he doesn't miss games. He doesn't have the sniffles and go home. He's out there bust his butt. And I would argue to say, like, where would this decor be without him? And that's a scary friggin' proposition this year. Now, look, down the road, if there is a trade to be had, look, Provorov might be a great one. I mean, he's in his prime. He's proven, you pair him up. Like, I don't mind seeing him here, but like that's another one where it's like that could be a pretty legit blockbuster trade.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, and I don't mean to cut you off, Casey, but it's like I don't want you to think that I want Provorov gone. I do think that he could be part of the solution, but it's like at some point this team is going to have some sort of movement, some sort of change. And it seems like the player to trade to get some sort of value. You know what I mean? Like when you need someone who can score goals, you're going to have to give up something. And it just, that's him to me. And now you have Cam York, who can maybe not be Provorov right away, but you can feel confident enough kind of sliding up the D pairs where it's like, Provorov, I don't want the word isn't expendable, but it's like you can now explore that option.
Yeah, I think like in the last couple of years, like Provorov has been it. Like he's been like the only reliable D guy. Yes, he makes some boathead moves. I don't think he's played poorly. I don't know, Hoagie. Do you have his plus minus up by any chance in there?
Find it real quick.
But like I think everyone was a minus double digits last year. But I'd be curious to see what he is this year. I think, I heard rumors that not this past offseason, but 2 off seasons ago, like there was a team that wanted to make a move for Provorov, and Chuck was ready to do it. And the brass, the Holmgrens and the Clarks of the world said, no, you don't move Provorov. So I think,
well, that's
Chuck
a bigger conversation too.
Lame duck anyway. But, I think he'd be willing to move him for the right deal. I don't know if it's going to be right for the team or not. Maybe I agree. I think that you can't keep running that D-core back. Right. But like the Ellis situation is still such a thorn in the side, and it's not made it any easier with the Sanheim contract, which would have been that would have been a great trade chip. Great.
Right.
He's minus 10 this season, minus 20 last, and plus 4, and then plus 11 in the 2 before that.
Not on the power play either, right? He's not playing on the power play.
Yeah, he's been off and on the second one here and there, but I think with York coming up, like you have Tony on the first one, and then you have York, sort of quarterbacking. But I have seen him on there. I saw Risto on the power play the other day too.
Smash. Hoagie, what say you about just the Provorov idea?
I think with Provorov is. John, you kind of hint to his inconsistencies and his issues with being consistent. I think it's because Torts wants him to be more defensively sound than, turning the puck up the ice. That's why we brought in a D'Angelo. That's why we probably signed Sanheim. I think he's been that person for so long that Torts is like, all right, let's work on this side of the puck for you. And I think he's not used to that because he was that guy for so long for us of turning the puck up the ice and scoring. Like I just saw his sophomore season, he hit like 17 goals and like 24 assists. Like, where's that program? I'd rather him kind of become his own sound player all around. So I think that's where it kind of comes into a fact where he's not the most defensively sound player, and Torts wants more out of him. And I like that. I like that about Torts. He tells you what he wants.
Right.
When he compliments you, it's actually a legit like this.
Right.
Something right.
And when he shits on you, he's shitting on you for a purpose. Like that. He's 100% clear with his players and with everybody. Everybody that he talks to. Media, could be JJ, it could be anybody. He is 100% clear.
I'll say this though too, that if Provorov is to go, there's we don't have a first pairing defenseman currently in house. We don't have
Ryan Ellis.
With 2 legs.
Yeah.
So I think we at that point. So let's assume you keep Sanheim and you keep York in there. Like we're back to the first pairing right-handed defenseman situation that we were in 2 years ago.
But Casey, I'd argue that on a good team. Like Provorov ideally isn't a first pairing defenseman either. I think he's a borderline 2, ideally 3, like
on a very depth defensive team.
Right. I think ideally, that would be his position. we are running short on time though. We've got 2 other topics we want to get to. We've got great dialogue here so far. I think this one's going to be pretty quick. But believe it or not, the Flyers are showing a little goalie depth. Now, I don't want to go too crazy here, but with Carter Hart having the concussion and all the hoopla around that crap,
like he's back. Everybody, shut up. He's back.
Right. We won't get there. But Sam Ersson, the Hoagie, you said he looked pretty good in that California trip, right? The first game that he had to play against Carolina got lit up. Then you get Carter Hart gets hurt, has to come back in, and looked pretty well, was able to kind of keep his head up and, showed his resilience. Now I love everybody already. Like, oh, does this mean Carter Hart's expendable? Like, it's been 3 games. Let's calm down a little bit. But we do have an interesting situation where Sandstrom is getting healthy again. What do we do with our goalies? Are we sending down Ersson? Are we sending down Sandstrom and putting him on waivers? Casey, what do you think the Flyers do if they haven't done it already?
Yeah, so this is all it has to come to a head tomorrow because Hart's back off IR. That got announced today. I'll say that I personally think they're going to put Sandstrom down through waivers. I think, has he shown anything for someone to be like, yeah, this is our guy to pick him up? I just think he can risk it.
Impressed. Yeah.
No, and here's the thing with Ersson, and like this is where like Torts hasn't said it, but between him and Kim Dillabaugh, like you're seeing it with the playing time. Like we never saw the kind of faith in Sandstrom that we have seen in Ersson in the last,
right. Tortorella likes Ersson. It's very clear.
He likes Ersson, and I think like the team you can kind of see like Ersson, and I don't know Sandstrom, but like it is when Hart is starting 7-8 games in a row,
right?
And it's just like, dude, just put Sandstrom in, for God's sakes. Tortorella won't do it. That just shows just a lack of confidence. So I personally think that they're gonna roll the dice and send Sandstrom down.
Does he clear?
I think so, but you never know.
Right. Hoagie, how about you, buddy? What do you think?
Yeah, send Sandstrom down. I think Ersson has just proven himself to be competent in the NHL. Listen, he played Carolina, he played San Jose, he played the Kings, and he played Anaheim. One really good team, one decent team for the West Coast, and 2 really bad teams. 2.9 goals against in 4 games and a 905 save percentage. I like it. I liked him in preseason. I was hoping he would beat out Sandstrom.
Right.
I thought he was the guy, and I would love for them to freaking run with Hart and Ersson for this season. Why not?
All right. Does Sandstrom clear for you?
I would imagine so. Someone tweeted out earlier, like, "Oh, what happens if he gets picked up?" I was like, "Why would anybody pick him up?"
Well, and if he gets picked up,
stash him away in the AHL, right?
Right. We move on. Here's the one caveat. I want Ersson to stay as long as the Flyers plan to kind of rotate their goalies like every 4th or 5th game. No Carter Hart for 7 in a row, 8 in a row, because Ersson needs the playing time. So as long as they're gonna do that, which I think that they will, especially with how much Tortorella seems to like Ersson. But as long as they plan to take that approach, then I'm all for keeping Ersson and taking the risk on putting Sandstrom through waivers.
I think you also look at it too. So let's assume that Sandstrom clears. You look at the January schedule, and we have a lot of double days off. And I know we have that Buffalo game thrown in there, but we're playing like Toronto, Buffalo, Washington back-to-back, Boston. Then it's like Anaheim, Chicago, Detroit. That's a light. Those are all like beatable teams. And Winnipeg, LA, Minnesota, Winnipeg. So like, and then you have the All-Star break, and so I think it's like it's a favorable schedule where not every game is like a gauntlet game against Boston, Pittsburgh, Florida, Carolina. And so I think if you're going to do it, this might be a good month to do it.
Yeah.
And also the fact that Hart could get on the ice tomorrow and be like, ooh, I don't feel so good.
Right.
It's shit.
and to me too, right? Like now you want to see, like, is Ersson our backup for next season?
Right.
Can we take the approach that we did with Sandstrom, with Urson next season? Can he be our backup goalie, or do we need to go out and get somebody?
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on.
Wouldn't it be wild if we had like a Boston type of goalie situation with like Swayman and Ullmark? Like that would be ideal.
That'd be great.
That's not
nice problem to have.
Yeah, right. Next year, where it's like Carter Hart's going to be a
Right.
UFA. What do we do? All right, last one, and this is something that I feel like has quieted down a little bit, but Chuck Fletcher, right? Hot seat GM. This team is still losing much more than it's winning. There are questions surrounding on how much longer Chuck Fletcher is going to be the general manager of this team. Hoagie, you have felt really strongly about this as far as him being gone. I think you said after Christmas. We're after Christmas. So, Hoagie, what are you thinking now?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Like we said, it's gotten really quiet.
Yeah.
And, like multiple people reported, his time's coming. His time's coming. Here we are. We're after Christmas. Everybody said around the holidays it was bound to happen. But I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess Comcast or whoever is just like, no, he's still safe. Whatever, honky dory. These are the way they are. Oh, there's another injured player. We can blame it on that. So I think he's just going to take a step back, and we're just going to see Danny Briere or somebody kind of come in to take his spot eventually.
So you still think at some point in 2023, Chuck Fletcher's not going to be the general manager of this team?
Before deadline, it's got to happen.
Wow.
There's no way.
Casey, I'm really interested in your thoughts here because I kind of disagree with Hoagie.
Unless we go on another 10-game winless streak, I don't see him getting let go. And it's not because I'm a big fan of his, but I just if they were going to let him go, last February would have been the time to let him go. But the best move that he made, and I know we said this 2 years ago too, but the best move he made was finding a really good coach for this team at this time.
Yeah. And
so I don't know. I don't see a scenario where they're going to let him go, but man, it scares the crap out of me. But at the same time, Chuck's no dummy. He went to Harvard. He went to school outside of Boston.
His dad was a respectable GM.
His daddy put the reins into him. He knows that people are coming for him. And, so I think if anything, maybe he lashes out and he is back against the wall and he makes some pretty shrewd moves. And, he impresses us all. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it in a few ways. First of all, with how chaotic and crazy this organization has been the past 2+ years, stability is key. If the organization doesn't have to make a drastic move in general manager, they're not going to. Okay. If you look at this team with the talent that they have, right? Expectations are not high. I don't think there's a situation where it's like this team's underperforming. Chuck, you're gone. Unless, Casey, like you said, another 10-game losing streak or something crazy. I also look at it like this. Whether or not we agree that this is the right plan, Chuck Fletcher is committed to a lot of players. There is some sort of plan at play here. I always worry about the idea of changing the guard when you're trying to stabilize things, changing the guard and then blowing that up. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't necessarily trust him, but it's like the team is finally starting to move in the right direction in terms of work ethic and playing hard, where it's like, I just don't see it. I don't think that enough bad is going to happen for this guy to be fired.
I do see a scenario that Hoagie said, though, where maybe he comes in as I'm transitioning to the special advisor to the Paul Holmgren, go play golf ball. That kind of scenario.
Right. But I almost wonder if that's on Chuck Fletcher's terms, though.
Yep. Yeah, we can't hold Danny back anymore. Danny's ready to take the reins,
Right. But, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to, if this team continues to move in the right direction, like I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing if he stays with the team as long as we're continuing this progress.
Right.
I don't want any more upheaval unless it's got to happen.
Yeah.
So I guess to kind of put a bow on it, Hoagie, I already know your answer because you said it. 2023, at some point, Chuck Fletcher is not going to be the general manager. But Casey, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I think he's. I say by the end of the season, he is still the general manager.
Okay. Off season, do you think that he is still? And if he's not, do you think it's that promotion, Danny Briere?
He's either the general manager or still with the organization in some way, shape, or form.
Right, because in my mind, if he gets fired, it's in season. Yep. I don't think that they would go out the full season and then fire him. I think, unless, again, it's that promotion to vice president, I think he's the general manager starting next season. So,
interesting.
Hoagie,
no, I get where you're coming from. No, I definitely get. It's just interesting. I don't know.
Like if they were going to fire him, they would have fired him that losing streak.
We've seen so much bad over the past 3 seasons that I think that's right there. The writing's there. But
sure, and I think people in your position and my position, Casey's position, would have fired him already.
Right.
Yeah.
But like
the entire fan base would have fired.
But I've also said I think his seat is nice and comfy, and they're not just on to say, see you later. They're just on to blame it on the injuries and what have you, and he's just on to get a comfier seat.
Here's the only exception I would say is if for some reason he and Tortorella butt heads on something. Like Tortorella is stable, like absolutely stable. Like if all of a sudden Tortorella's like, I can't work for this guy,
sure,
then see you later.
I wonder if that's already happened with some of the personnel issue. Jeez, I lost my train of thought. But some of the personnel that Chuck has brought in
decisions, the
decisions.
I think he's squashed a lot of them. Who the hell did Chuck try to push on him at the beginning of the season? Who was like a total AHL player? I can't remember who.
No, it wasn't Bellows, but that's one of them. No, it was. Was it Max Willman? No, it wasn't Willman.
It wasn't.
Oh,
Willman.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't remember his name. See,
but he like made it out of camp and was like,
sure, I'll give him a look, and like they just sent him down after one game.
Yeah.
So my final words here though is what I'm waiting for though, right? JVR extension.
Oh, dude, don't even. Like
he's just a really important part of the locker room. We signed him to 5 more years at $4 million.
Gave him a nice little increase.
The Wells Fargo Center would burn.
Meanwhile, freaking Chicago fleeces somebody for Patrick Kane for multiple first rounds and second round picks.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's about it. We had a lot in this episode. I think we did a good job, boys. So, Casey, do you want to tell the peeps where they can find you online, buddy?
Hey, I'm at Pod Street Casey on Elon Musk's beautiful Twitter app.
There you go. Did you pay for the check mark yet?
No, I'm forging it into my photo. People won't know the difference.
Got to get the square photo now.
All right, Sandwich.
Pod Street Hoax on the Twitter app.
Great. You can find me at Pod Street Gove. You can find our missing member of the show, Derek, at Pod Street Bob. You can find all of us at Pod St Bullies. Quick shout out to all of our affiliates. We got so many. 5 Minute Major, High and Wide, and the Hockey Focus. And now this is
that was 3. That really stretched you. That was really too much.
A lot of affiliates. All right. Bye now.